Yeah.
Take care. So speaking of people who have made their home in the Phoenix, Arizona area, the greater Phoenix area, how about our guy, the one and only Seth Joyner? We just roll from one great guest to another, man. Seth, how we doing?
What's going on, Jess?
Seth, we're jealous. We're cold back here. You know what I mean? You know what's going on back here, man, and you know what you're dealing with there.
Hey, don't be jealous, man. I was just there yesterday. Okay, I've been here less than 24 hours. So
okay, all right,
all good.
Hey, Seth, how many people have hit you up to stay in your home for Super Bowl week? I
just, I told him, I was like, if you can get in the front gate, then you're welcome to come on by.
Yeah, I don't think I'm pushing that one with Seth.
Wait, does the front gate have spikes on the tip of it?
Nah, it ain't even that kind of deal. Stop it.
Seth, you've been here, man. You played in these games, okay? So walk us through the challenges because there's a lot of nonsense this week. Let's face it. There's a lot of distractions potentially if you let them become distractions. How hard is that, especially for guys who haven't lived it yet? And there's a good amount of Eagles players that haven't. How hard is that?
Well, I think it's a problem if, you got a lot of young guys on your team and you don't have, very many, veterans that's been there and done that before. I think the advantage that the Eagles have this year is that, you've got guys like Kelsey and Lane Johnson and Fletcher Cox, Brandon Graham, guys who've been there and won a championship before and understand what it's all about that can, grab these young guys the way that they have all season long. Just like Tim was talking about the leadership of, Jalen Hurts. You've got such great leadership on this team that I find it hard to believe that these guys are going to allow this moment to slip through the crack, understanding, what's at stake. And, you got the entire offseason to party and have a good time, once you're crowned champion. But, if you're the GOAT leaving out of there, so to speak, and I'm not talking about the greatest of all times, if you're the GOAT because you lost this game because you did something stupid, now you go down in history as, the reason why a team couldn't pull off, what was very probable for them to do.
Seth, when you get to a Super Bowl week, from a coaching perspective, do they push you even more so to go over the fine-tune things to make sure it's borderline perfect, or is it more relaxed and it's more walkthrough because you've pushed your guys to the nth degree just to get to this moment?
I think the pushing started last week. I think, in that prep week, and that's what I like to call it, the prep week, the week before, that's the time to kind of brush up on again, just like you had in the bye week, of the playoffs. You got an opportunity to go over technical stuff, little technical flaws that kind of slip through the cracks. You got an opportunity to kind of brush up on, some weaknesses, whatever they are, whether it be physical or, some bad things that you're doing in your drops or your technique. You can clean up those things. But I think once you get to this week, there's added emphasis, but the problem is, with the way the NFL is set up now, you've got X amount of time that you can be on the field and you better get off because somebody's filming and somebody's going to turn you in and the team's going to get fined. It's going to be a big deal. Back in my day, if they didn't like the way the drill was going, they started all over. If that was a 15, 20-minute drill, you just started all over and did it again because they didn't care about being on the field for 2.5, 3 hours. So I think there is a lot more emphasis, on the walkthrough period. And I think there's a lot more emphasis when you're in meetings and how you approach those meetings. I don't think you can push the guys any more than they're used to being pushed on their own. You're either a grinder, you're either, a film hawk, you're either a great studier, of the data that's presented to you, or you're not. And I don't think at this point in time, you're going to change how guys approach it, that much more.
Seth, talk to us from a defender standpoint, the difficulty and what you need to do to not let Mahomes and that Mahomes-Kelsey hookup kill you, whether it's Mahomes buying extra time or Kelsey getting 7 when they need 6. What do you do to not – they're going to get theirs, but what do you do not to let them go off?
Well, I mean, if you're asking me, what the game plan is, believe it or not, the guy that I'm most afraid of is Isaiah Pacheco.
Yeah.
Because if he gets going, and then play action becomes a part of their offensive game plan, then, you know, the Eagles are really going to have a hard time, because when a team is running the ball with success, you know, a defense knows the first thing it has to do is shut that part of the game down.
Yeah.
And once you commit to doing that and you're not getting it done, the minute that they go play action pass, bootlegs, and all that other crazy stuff that Kansas City likes to do, you know, the linebackers and the safeties are slow.
Mm-hmm.
A step behind will get you beat in this game. But as far as Kelsey is concerned, listen, I'm just in obvious passing situations, you know, he's just going to get double teamed, you know, and we're either going to play zone behind it, or everybody else is going to play man, whatever it is. But Jonathan Gannon's got to figure out a way to take him away. Now, easier said than done, because nobody all season has been able to do it. You look at his numbers for a tight end, it's phenomenal. But I've seen teams take guys away where they put 2 defenders on the guy and said, you know what, we're going to both jam you at the line of scrimmage, okay? And we're going to double you all over the field. Now, if I was doing it, I'd take Kazir White, because he's probably the biggest body that they have and the guy that probably can stay with him. I want to jam him at the line of scrimmage, and I want to play underneath technique. When I say underneath technique, that means that I'm going to jam him and I'm going to let him get upfield about a yard and a half on me. Trust me, it is the hardest thing to do when you're playing man-to-man, because in your mind, you get the sense that because he's a yard and a half ahead of me, that he's got me beat. So being able to be patient is hard to do. But you got to remember, you got help over the top. Now, what do you accomplish by having him stand underneath? If he breaks out, you're underneath it. You're in the passing lane. If he breaks in, you're underneath it. You're in the passing lane. You're able to shut those windows no matter what it is that he does. You're not worried about getting beat deep, because guess what? You got help over top. And anything that's up the field, any kind of seam route, you're going to stay inside of him, and you shut that inside window with help over top. The only route that can really beat you is maybe the corner route, but you got the help of the safety over top. And everybody else is going to have to man up, but I'm not going to allow him. And then you got to mix it up. I mean, sometimes, you know, you line up in zone, you give them a look where you think you're in pure zone, and maybe you're playing damn near like a boxing one where you take a safety and you drop him in late, you know, and you take your shot at him, you know, and then you got the safety rotation is helping and you got him locked up. I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do. I don't know that Jonathan Gannon has it in his arsenal to be able to do it that way, but they've had 2 weeks to kind of prepare, and they better kind of figure out, you know, how they want to do it, or a combination of how they want to mix it up. Anytime you get him, you know, in line, meaning lined up in the tight end position, hey, I take an extra step late on my defensive end to be able to go ahead and, you know, put a chuck on him, because he's allowed to hit him, and then the guy who's got to cover him is allowed to hit him one more time. So now if he's not where he needs to be by the time Patrick Mahomes is ready to pass the ball, now he goes from the primary, you know, to the last guy in the progression, because Pat's got to move on.
Hey, Seth, is it imperative that the Eagles edge rushers be more disciplined and possibly even change their angle in terms of when they attack Patrick Mahomes, because he's so good at sliding up into an open spot to buy himself extra time?
I think it's going to be so important, D-Gun, for them to realize that any more than 2 yards above the tight end,
okay,
above the quarterback rather, is going to be too far.
Okay.
Because if you get up behind him, you're not going to be able to run the loop and come back around and get him. He's going to step into that area that you vacated. And he's going to, if they're in man, he's going to take off and get the yards as much as he can get and slide. If it's zone, he's just going to scramble horizontal to the line of scrimmage and wait for his guys to adjust. So where you really want him in the pocket, I hope the Eagles' plan is to play as much 5-man as they can, because when they're in 5-man, they're a lot more balanced in their pass rush. And I get it. You're going to have to mix it up, because you lose a guy in coverage when you go 5-man rush and all of those types of things. But the defensive ends, you know, you want to get there, but you got to be so careful how you do it, because the majority of the big plays that he makes them when he's out of the pocket, when he's improvising, when he's on the move. And if they allow that to happen, you know, they're going to be in for a long day. You just got to, and it's hard to be disciplined. I mean, you see that guy and you know what he can do, and you know the weapons that he has, and you're trying to get there, but you just got to be smart about it, and you can't be selfish and you can't be greedy in your pass rush.
Go to the other side, Seth. How you attacking this Kansas City defense, man? Certainly Chris Jones is a beast. There's no doubt about that. But there's some vulnerable areas there for them. How would you go about that?
I think Rob, you've got the best offensive line in pro football. I think it'd be as egregious as hell for the Eagles to come down and do anything less than what they've done the last 2 weeks. Do not fall into the trap that Jalen Hurts is only throwing for 121 yards and 154 yards and no touchdowns in the last. The object is to win the damn football game. How are you going to do that? You've averaged 44 carries over the last 2 games. Okay, that means you run the ball 88 times the last 2 games in the divisional and the championship game. You rushed for 416 yards in 2 playoff games, meaning that you rushed for 208 yards a game, okay? And you scored 7 touchdowns in those 2 games. That's 3.5 touchdowns on the ground per game. Why would you do anything different? Right. Now, the opportunity to throw the ball is going to be there, okay? If you just come out, you run the ball, and you establish the line of scrimmage, and you dominate the line of scrimmage like you've been doing, you're going to be able to go play action pass like I talked about on the other side of the ball and get what you want. You got 2 rookie corners out there. A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith ought to be smiling all game long. But you got to establish the run. If they do anything besides that, it'll be the most egregious game plan that I've ever seen, before. And you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of when Kansas City beat the San Francisco 49ers in the Super Bowl. Another tight game. The 49ers didn't trust Jimmy Garoppolo going into the playoffs. They ran the ball over 200 yards. Same situation through the divisional round and the NFC Championship game. Then they got in the championship game, and Kyle Shanahan decided he wanted to have Jimmy Garoppolo throw it 40 times, and they lost the game. That if they would have just ran the ball against the worst run defense in the National Football League, they would have run away with that damn game. I just pray that they don't get some harebrained idea to come out and throw this ball 40 times, man, instead of just doing what got them there. Because the object here is to win the damn game.
Yep.
Plain and simple.
Yeah.
I don't care how it looks.
Hey, Seth, how impressive has it been for you when you look at a guy like Andy Reid, that he has still withstood the test of time as a head coach? You look at the tremendous volume of success he had here in Philadelphia. It fell short of hoisting that Lombardi trophy. Then he basically restarts his career in Kansas City, and yet he's still able to relate to young players. Look at where he started in 99. It's 2023, and players – we always talk, and I ask you as well as ex-players, would you coach in today's game? And all you ex-players say the same thing. D-Gun, coaching today's players is not as easy as when I came through the ranks. But yet a guy like Andy Reid, who's approaching 65 years of age, is still able to get that maximum effort out of these young players today.
You know what? Someone needs to write a story on Andy Reid and call it the evolution of Andy Reid. I mean, I just you got a guy who came from, I was actually in Green Bay with him my second to last year with the Packers. He was the quarterback coach for Brett Favre. It was pretty evident, they wanted to, as good a running team they wanted to throw the football, So Andy comes to Philadelphia, drafts Donovan McNabb. The city's not happy about it. A couple of years down the road, they turn it all around. Now they're contenders. The same thing that plagued, the Green Bay Packers towards the end, in my opinion, pretty much, plagued Andy during his time there. He just didn't want to run the football. Didn't want to run the football, and he didn't, he and Joe Banner didn't do the greatest of jobs of evaluating wide receiver talent and giving Donovan the best that they could put around him. You fast forward, he goes to KC with Veach. And they go out and they get all of this talent at wide receiver. Now, all of a sudden, they can evaluate some guys that other people don't even know who the hell they are. I mean, you think about McCole Hardman. You think about Tyreek Hill. These aren't guys that were like first-round draft picks. These were diamond in the roughs that they found.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, he's able to kind of transform how he used to do things, into what he is today. And then they go on and move up double-digit picks, and say, That's the quarterback we want. Patrick Mahomes didn't fall to them. They moved up like 13, 14. I don't even remember the numbers. Some crazy numbers, 17 picks to go get the guy that they thought was going to be the premier quarterback. You put all those things together, and then you think about how long Andy's been coaching. And I like to say Andy Reid is just playing chess while everybody else is playing checkers. All the things that they do from the standpoint of, that whole ring around the rosy thing and all the different formations and all the different crazy things that they do. I tell people all the time, it's really one of those situations where Andy has mastered and figured out ways to, mess with the discipline and the eyes of the defense. What's the ring around the rosy thing all about, D-Gun? Okay.
I'm still trying to figure it out.
We're standing over there. I'm telling you, we're standing over there on the defense. Let's just say that we're in a defensive huddle and we're standing there, we're watching this. We're like, what the hell is this? And then all of a sudden, they break the ring around the rosy, okay? And they line up and they don't wait. They just snap the ball and they go. Now, you as a defender, your mind is like, what the hell is that? Before you know it, they snap the ball. So your eyes aren't fixated on your keys. You're not looking where you should be looking. And before you know it, they're on you, okay? Tell me that that's not masterful. All the motions and all the shifts and this guy going that way is to make your eyes move in areas where it shouldn't be moving instead of it being locked in where it should be locked in. And it's just downright masterful when you really stop and think about it.
Seth, let's go to his counterpart. What's record aside, what's impressed you most about Sirianni in his time here?
Well, listen, I mean, I think one of the greatest things that Nick did was, relinquish play calling, because it's really allowed him to be the head guy of everything. But I think the combination of him and Shane Steichen and the way that they've run this offense, listen, they've proven that they can beat you either way, and they're not opposed to doing it either way. Listen, there's been games where they come out in the first half and they throw for 200 yards and they get a lead, and they come out in the second half and they run the entire second half and only throw 2 or 3 passes. They've done the exact opposite before. And then they've had games where, they've just come out with a great mixture. They've been balanced, like 35 runs and 35, 36, 37 passes, so they can beat you anyway. It's just having, the wherewithal to be able to make the shift when they need to make the shift. Like, I remember a couple of weeks ago where they came out with Gardner Minshew and they went 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. And then they gave the ball up on downs before the half. Well, after first 2 3 and outs, that should have told you we need to make an adjustment to the game plan. Since then, they've made the adjustment. They made the adjustment because they've had to with Jalen, because they've been trying to keep him safe. If they can continue to do that, if they can continue to make wise decisions, even though I think that this is a game where you have to turn Jalen all the way loose, all bets are off. We're not sliding. We're not doing anything. We're getting all that we can get. We're pulling out all the stops, and we'll worry about his shoulder healing in the offseason. But the objective is to win this game, and whatever it takes. If we got to run it 44 times, if we got to pass it 44 times, we'll do what's necessary to win this football game.
Hey, Seth, 2 questions to one. When it comes to Jonathan Gannon, what's mandatory that his defense does? And also, by the same contrast, what's mandatory that his defense doesn't do against this Kansas City offense?
Well, I'm going to shock everybody because everybody thinks that I hate Jonathan Gannon. And listen, I don't, it's okay for me not to like his style of play calling, okay? And I think people are so misled and so out of the box when they hear me talk about blitzing. But I've been going back looking at film, and I've been looking at the turnovers that the Eagles create. And a lot of the interceptions and things of that nature, a lot of the turnovers that are created really come off of pressure situations, whether it's a zone blitz or whether it's a pure pressure situation. The James Bradbury pick, in the divisional game was off of pressure. TJ Edwards comes scot-free. Daniel Jones only has 1 read, and it's the wrong decision. James Bradbury pick. Now, the Eagles don't get any points off it, but, hey, it kind of is what it is. It's hard to argue with 16-3. That's just the truth of it. It's hard to argue with the fact that this defensive line broke the record that my defensive line set as far as sacks is concerned this year. It's hard to argue with that. I think, but at the same time, there are times where I just like to see him be a little more aggressive. I'm not saying being foolish. I'm saying be a little more aggressive. Hard for me to say that I got any recommendations on what he should do when your defense is ranked second in the NFL, overall, and have had the type of year that they've had and posted the type of numbers that they've posted. All he's got to do is go out and do what he's been doing. My only advice is make sure you got a plan for Travis Kelce and make sure that your guys are ready to, deal with Pacheco, not only in the run game, but when you get him out of the backfield, you get him matched up one-on-one with these with these linebackers, when they drop in zone, they drop the ball off. Listen, this kid doesn't run with just his hair on fire. He runs like his whole body's on fire, and he's going to be something to be reckoned with.
And you mentioned Pacheco, but Clyde Edwards-Helaire has now been activated for this game, and he's just as dangerous as Pacheco.
Yeah, it just comes down to tackling. It really comes down to tackling. I mean, these guys cannot come downhill and think that, they're going to blow somebody up and they're just going to, fall off their feet. You got to be intentional. If you want that son of a gun down on the ground, and make sure you put his ass down on the ground. That way he's down. But coming up, closing your eyes and trying to blow him up and hoping that he's just going to fall down, this game is too big and too important for that mentality to be that way. Be intentional about everything that you do.
Seth, if they were to win this game, beat the Chiefs, 17 wins on the season, do it in pretty dominating fashion. You mentioned the sack numbers, et cetera.
Hate this question, Rob.
I know. You know where I'm going. Do they go down as the all-time greatest Eagles team?
See, it's impossible for me to make comparisons. Okay, last night LeBron James broke the all-time scoring lead, in the NBA. Okay, and people want to make the comparisons.
Yep.
LeBron and MJ. Now LeBron and Kareem. Is LeBron the greatest? And I'll say this: even this football team, they're playing in different eras. Could you take this team and put them in my era and have them accomplish what they accomplished this year? Could you take us and put us in this era, and what will we look like playing against today's NFL? Can you take the 2017 team and put them in this era of football and then compare the two? Can't we just relish in the fact that, we about to win our second Super Bowl in the last 5 years instead of comparing, which one is better and which one's the best of all time?
Yeah.
Who gives a damn?
Clearly we can't, or I can't at least.
Is that a yes or a no? Is that a yes or a no?
Huh?
Is that a yes or a no?
I'm not even gonna answer it. And I know people might get upset about it. They might think, he's just upset because they outplayed, his Eagles D. Listen, man, I just want the Eagles to win as many Super Bowls as they can, because this fan base and this city deserves it. Flat plain. I don't care about the organization or whatever else. These fans in this city deserves every good thing sports-wise that comes to it, because we've languished for so long. And when you talk about comparisons, I really don't care, because I really do believe that different eras create different teams and different players, and it's damn near impossible to make comparisons along those lines when you really stop and think about it. It's like 17 games instead of 16, okay? What happens if you take Dan Marino in his day and you put him in today's NFL? That son gun might throw for 7,000 yards, D-Gun.
You ain't kidding.
Well, how do you make the comparison? Even when you're talking about which guys are Hall of Fame worthy and which ones aren't, how do you compare the guys from just back in my era to the guys of today?
Yeah.
Because when you look at linebacker statistics, those guys will never post the type of numbers that I posted, ever again. Not in a pure 4-2 look, because those guys don't rush the passer like I did. And most teams don't play as much man-to-man coverage the way that I did back in the day. So those comparisons, are moot in my opinion. And you continue to ask yourself, how do you make the comparisons when the eras were so different?
Well said, Seth. All right, we're looking forward to it, man. I cannot wait for this Sunday, the JAKIB post-game show with yourself, Mike Missinelli, that guy D-Gun, Devin Caney, of course, our coverage all day long.
D-Gun, I'm wearing my green tie on Sunday, man.
Are you?
Oh, yeah.
Hey, Seth.
I got my Eagles green tie.
I'm also send you a little caption of the menu for Sunday that was sent to me by Ocean Casino personnel.
What?
He
to
loves
get your
rubbing this
opinion.
in, Seth. He loves it. He loves it. Yeah.
Must be. You must have grilled up some stuff and sent it in, D-Gun. Oh, you don't want to say nothing.
He's not. No comment.
That
on
little snicker just gave you away.
Yeah. Seth, we're looking forward to it, man. Can't wait, and enjoy the game, and hopefully we'll get a chance to talk about it the following week, and hopefully there's going to be a parade, man.
No doubt, my man. No doubt. Looking
I'll see you
forward
Sunday,
to it,
bro.
Sure.
Talk to you, Seth. Be good,
All right.
man. That is Seth Joyner, the great Seth Joyner right there. He's awesome, man. He is so engaging. You listen to that dude, man. I could listen to him read the phone book, and I'm locked in.
Dude, I know a lot of football, but to have the honor and privilege to sit with him in a green room and just talk and just jaw jack about football on a game day is a class worth taking in itself. Because, guys like Seth and Barrett, no matter what we think we see, they show you something that you didn't see. When you go back and look at it and go, doggone it, they're right. I didn't see that before, but you see the second time. So, and that's why that falls in the category of, Rob, I don't care how old you are, how long you've been doing anything in life. Don't ever think that you've learned enough. You always learn something new every day in life. If you're the smartest person in the room, you're in the wrong room. Plain and simple.
Yeah. Well said. Well said. All right. So let's let everybody know what we have tomorrow. So Barrett will be back. Barrett will be joining us from Phoenix. Okay. We're going to have Jeff McClain from the Philadelphia Inquirer at 12 o'clock, right out of the chute, Gunner. Then we're going to have Mike Sealski, also the Inquirer columnist, at 1 o'clock. Then we're going to have Matt Lombardo, friend of the show, who does an unbelievable job covering the NFL. He's going to join us at 1:30. There's more coming. We're just sprinkling a little bit in there. There's going to be a lot more coming. I can promise you that.
You want to give a sample of what we're trying to do here?
Yes.
I'm trying to get, and hopefully we can get it done Friday. Tomorrow seems like a stacked day, so I'm gonna have to rule out tomorrow.
We can squeeze them.
Think so? Well, if
We'll
not
see.
tomorrow, hopefully Friday. Former Eagles executive Joe Banner, we'll get him on here.